This podcast is all about happiness. What gave it away? I'm Fayon Dixon and welcome to Happy Talk. Each week, I will be introducing you to someone that I share a happy connection with. I just believe that we all have happy stories, happy events, and we sit on them. We never share them. So this is the platform for doing it. I work as a presenter, broadcaster, events host. I work with stroke survivors. I have my own children's radio show. And I've been really lucky in the last 20 years to do work where I just ooze happiness. Yeah, I'm one of those people. My cup is eternally overflowing. Sit back, enjoy. It's time for Happy Talk. Welcome to Happy Talk with me, Fayon Dixon. Good news, good guests, no grief. We can see quite clearly that we have another sensational guest here on Happy Talk. It's Sam Bunch. Good morning, Sam. How are you?
Morning, Fayon. How are you?
I'm fine, but for some reason I'm shouting. I'm just so excited to see you.
My husband says that to me all the time. He says, "Can you stop shouting on Zoom? Just talk with a normal voice."
I've got the mic. I don't know why I'm shouting. Because we were supposed to do this a couple of weeks ago, but then you had to go and sort out a neighbour's rose bush or something. So we had to change. Here we are. Anyway, we'll get into the whole gubbins in a bit. So on Happy Talk, I like to start with news from the rooftop. And these are my friends on Instagram, and they are all about positive news stories about issues that are out there and campaigns that make a difference. So can I share with you today's news from the rooftop, please, Sam?
You may.
Thank
I'm
you.
looking forward to it.
Oh, thank you. So it's about an arts charity. I love this so much because, you know, through lockdown, all of us have had to do things very differently, and we've all missed having, you know, that experience of going to the theatre or seeing entertainment. You know, we really miss it. And I don't know how many times you think about it, but I don't think about it enough. It's about how deaf people who are hard of hearing, are coping with this. And they're not coping very well at all. So there is a company called Stage Text. And what they're doing is, because they've been very concerned about the mental well-being of hard of hearing people, and the statistics through the summer was that 45% of hard of hearing people felt more isolated than normal. So what they've done to increase the demand for subtitle performance during the first lockdown, they provided the Phantom of the Opera subtitled, so, you know, hard of hearing people can actually take part. But they realise now that they've got to do more, because 12.8 million people with hard of hearing actually watch that performance. They know there's a demand for it. So in the second lockdown, starting from November the 9th through to the 15th of November, they're doing it again. They have got the hashtag "the show must go on," and they've got Amelia and a number of renowned shows which are going to be happening, and they're being organised with the British Library, the British Academy, and also the Royal Society. And I just love this because, you know, this is all about Happy Talk, and there's a lot of people there that are just not getting to do things that are quite natural to them. So I just love this story so, so much. I don't know if you, as a performer, because you are a performer, you see, I don't want you doing this, because I know you're I know you don't like to blow your own trumpet, but I will be doing it for you. Because you are an author, you are an interviewer, you are a TED talker, something that I'm so in awe of you of. We're coming on to that in a moment. You are a gardener, a yogi, and you are a natural born enthusiast, like me.
And have its detrimental of aspects, though, can't it? You can be too enthusiastic sometimes, don't you think?
Well, this is it. When I was young, I used to get told a lot to calm down. You know, even in my early 20s, I remember having a guy at work say to me, "Why are you so gung ho all the time?" And it would really hurt my feelings, because it's like, well, that's who I am. I'm a naturally happy person. But I had a lot of people that used to question my happiness. And, I used to try and tone things down around certain people. Did you used to have to do the same?
Yeah, it's really hard because if you're not used to being surrounded by enthusiastic people, and you are, and you've been like that all your entire life, and people sort of sometimes they feel a bit like, whoa. And it doesn't, I'm not saying we're too much, but we just do see the optimistic side on the whole of most things. And it's just, I don't know, we just get excited about life, don't we?
I get excited. I bounced out of bed this morning and I was dancing. Lawrence calls them my bedroom dancing. And I dance about and I'm looking out the window and, you've got all the lovely leaves that have turned different colours. And I'm just so grateful to open my eyes and see another day. You've
I know,
got to take the small victories. I'm sorry.
I know.
That's
And it
how
is,
I see life.
definitely there's something really, really lovely about just those simple things. And I definitely wasn't brought up in any religious way, shape, or form at all, or Buddhisty, but it is a little bit of a Buddhist philosophy, isn't it? Just take those small things and just go, whoa.
Yeah, it is. But I wasn't brought up as a Buddhist. I was brought up in a Christian household, well, Baptists, and which I feel are the Buddhists of the community of Christianity. They're just so laid back. The Baptists, they're lovely, and it was a very laid back, thing. But my mum would say to me, she'd look at me, she'd go, "You're happy, aren't you?" And I'm like, "Yeah." The smallest thing would just trigger me. What's wrong with that? But yeah, we're not for everyone, and that's fine. But as we get older, we realize where, to temper our enthusiasm to suit others, but not compromise ourselves because it's hurtful. I find now, at the age I am, when I have to squash my happiness and enthusiasm, but sometimes I have to do it because I want to be considerate to others, but not to the detriment of myself.
Yeah, well, my philosophy is that there aren't enough enthusiasts in the world, especially at the minute. It's quite, everything's a bit dour. So I just think, shine your light a bit without blowing your own trumpet. But
Yeah, shine it, man, shine it. So, there's a few things then that I wanted to talk to you about my happy connections. So, you and I met at Riverside Radio Studios. You were having an interview about this book. Da-da-da.
yeah, that's my book.
This is one of your books, Collecting Conversations, 100 Women Sharing Everyday Thoughts. And you were on with Chloe and you were having an interview and she introduced us. And I just feel there was just a natural kind of, hello, I've met somebody that I really like. That's what I felt. And we got in touch with on Twitter. And you got in touch with me to say you'd like to meet me for a coffee because you wanted to tap into my technical brain on social media. I'm like, you really don't want to do very well, do you? I'm like, what is this woman doing? You said you seem to know what you're doing.
Fake it to make it, love. You did, very honestly. You did. You'd have this aura of, you know exactly what you're doing.
Well, let's hope it continues. But yeah, I didn't know what I was doing. But we did meet for a coffee in Clapham and it was just so lovely. I felt like I'd met an old friend. Like I've only known you, might be 2 years now. And I can probably count on one hand how many times I've actually physically seen you in person. But you just feel like an old friend. You're so comfortable to be around. And we've got this enthusiasm thing that we both have. So the first thing then is meeting you at Riverside Radio. The second thing is when you asked me to take part in this book. Oh yeah, I did say I'd be blowing your trumpet because you're not really good at it. So menopause, a hot topic, and the timing was right because I think I'd gone through the worst of it, and now I could really laugh at it.
Mm.
And you've got to be the only person on the planet who has got me to you didn't ask me, I just felt so comfortable to share with you the following, and I'm going to read it. Nobody else has ever let me or made me be so honest about myself. It says, this is me, and you recorded me. I've got used to the fact that I can burst into flames of sweat at any given moment. My moods really do swing. If I'm honest, I was determined for my menopause to be the making of me, and it has been. I listen to my body more, I'm a little more gentle with myself, and that's got to be a benefit. A new thing I've started doing whenever I get really hot and I'm in the house, providing it's just the two of us, I just strip off, even to the point of taking off my bra and resting my boobs on the cool surface of the kitchen table while we eat. He's happy, I'm happy. It's a win-win situation. Listen, I'm just saying, only somebody like you could draw that out of me.
Oh my God, it was just the vision of it. There you are on your granite work surface with your boobs just resting there.
They're not, no. You've done something very wrong there. They're not like a, they're more like a, but that,
Mine would be.
but that's you, Sam. And, when did you start this whole conversation, sort of, because you're now talking to 100 men. You've been talking to 100 men in conversation. So you've gone from women to menopause to men. When was the time? Can you give me a date, a moment in your life when you said, right, I'm going to start collecting conversations?
I think it was probably a bit of a natural thing because I'm a complementary therapist by trade, that I trained as a reflexologist and a naturopath back in the 90s. So I've always been used to talking quite personally, one-to-one with somebody. So it's very natural. It doesn't feel odd. I can talk to anybody about anything. I don't have, nothing stops me. I'll just ask a question and people tend to open up. So I don't know, it's years of doing that did it in the first place. But when my mum died in 2007, she left a load of diaries. And what she'd written in those diaries was hilarious because they were just one-liners about the everyday stuff. So she'd put the dog crapped on the carpet, or I went to Woolworths, or, I had a McDonald's for tea, or whatever it was, but they were just one-liners. But they just talked about everyday mundane life. And that's what makes me tick. It's the everyday mundane life. It's the all, there's nobody bigger and better than I am or you are. We're all the same. It doesn't matter how much money you earn, what background you're from, what your education is. You're born, you live, you die. So the bit you do in the middle, a lot of it is mundane. So it's finding that excitement in that mundane, or enjoying them and celebrating the mundane, really. So when she died, I used to ring her up every week. We'd have a chat about all sorts of stuff. And I thought, who am I going to talk to? Who is going to give me my life wisdom now? What's going to happen? So I decided I'd just ask women, mainly at the school gate to start with. And my kids were still little and I was dropping them off every day. And I just thought, well, ask one if they want to come back, and I'll ask them some questions and see how it goes. I didn't sort of plan, let's write a book, let's do this, let's do that. So this one lady came round and we sat there in my kitchen. It was probably one of the nicest days I've ever had. 5 hours in my kitchen.
Wow.
Started asking her, I just went, how are you? And she went, fine. I went, no, but how are you? Because I love that. I've always observed people saying hello to each other as a greeting. And I love that greeting. But what do you actually say if you're given the opportunity? Because hi, how are you is a question. Shouldn't we just go around to people and say, hi. But when you say, how are you? And everybody just automatically goes, fine, thanks. Beyond that is what I'm fascinated by.
Yeah.
We sat in the kitchen and literally 5 hours we'd made some very, very fancy herbal tea that I bought. We'd made chocolate cakes. I'd come up with these 18 questions and we just had a really, really lovely time. And I thought, oh, this is nice. And all the little stories that come out, I've got these questions, but you go off on tangents and we weave in and out. And it's just like little gems and little nuggets that I've now taken into my life, and they're just there forever. I've got my own treasure chest. So when I got sort of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 women along, I thought, there's something in this. I know, I'll write a book. Never wanted to write a book in my life, never thought about it. I just said I'd do it. So it took me a long time because I genuinely hadn't got a clue what I was doing. But I interviewed 100 women, got all this fantastic stuff. And I just thought, oh, just shove it in a book and off we go. But that shoving in a book wasn't shoving it in a book at all. And that took me 4 years to do that. But anyway, but the point is, I do love it, and it's an awful lot of people. Is 100 people.
Yeah.
But you do get themes that come out, and you get sort of what's the word I'm looking for? You get a real like, yes, this is what women are like,
The
and
sense,
same with,
yeah.
yeah, and the same with the men. You can really feel the essence of what men are like. Obviously you can't, I'm generalizing and each person's different, but it's just, I love it. What I don't love is the typing. I
Ay,
hate the typing.
ay, ay, that's the worst part because
Oh,
we're creative people, so we love all of that part. But then when it comes to doing the admin or to making it into something, that's what slows us down.
yeah.
What you need is a PA. You need a PA or somebody to type it for you.
But I think again, when somebody, if I paid a girl to type a few of them up, and it's great, but they're not in that conversation. So I've had the conversation, so
Right.
I know how that's that
Yeah.
sense of it. So I've created a huge amount of work myself, but never mind. Never mind.
You got
I mean,
content. You got content, my gosh. And
I've got content, and it is lovely. It's a really, really lovely project. But both of them are actually. In fact, all three of them. I love them.
so can you say what your next project is, or is it under
No, because I started the men. I did a couple of men in 2017, 18, but then I was too busy with my first book, so I left it for a little while. But last year and this year, I've interviewed, I think, 58 men, so I've still got a long way to go.
Wow.
They all take between 2 and 5 hours a person. That's just for the interview. And then, of course, there's the transcription and the typing it up. And then that's data collecting, for want of a better word. And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
I'm not even going to start thinking about writing it till next spring.
Right.
So next year we'll be putting this into a book.
So
But I have loads of things. I mean, the list is going on. And talk about easily distracted. Rein it in, rein it in.
yeah. So I'm interested in the difference of how you were collecting conversations pre-COVID and how you are doing it now.
Well, the pre-COVID, I quite enjoyed myself because I'd jump on a train, or either somebody would come to my house if they were in the vicinity, but if they weren't, I'd go on a train. And that made it into a weekend, and it was lovely. Or, I'd travel around, and it was very, very nice. But I thought, ooh, this is going to be tricky. Anyway, the first person I interviewed was actually an old school chum that I'd not seen since I was 17.
Wow.
And I know, and I said to him, I sent him a message first, and I said, listen, can we do it via Zoom? I said, it might not work, it might be awful, it might be awkward, you just don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Anyway, press the button. It was like he was in front of me. I was like, there we go, happy days. It was easy. In fact, to be honest, it feels, apart from not having to make somebody a cup of tea, it's exactly the same. It doesn't
Yeah.
feel any different
Oh,
because
that's
we do.
great.
Yeah, no, it's very nice, and it means now I've done people in America, Australia, Italy. You can go around the world on this. It's
Spread
brilliant.
out now. So
Yeah.
in a way, I have to be really careful about this because, and this could be my half glass full attitude, but COVID, the whole pandemic, I'm not talking about the people who have been ill or sadly lost lives and lost jobs and, all the downside of it. But for me personally, I needed something like this where everything kind of stopped for a bit so I could
Mm.
focus on what I need to get done. And I have been so productive. I have got so much done, which leads me on to our other thing that you and I connected by, which is our gardens. You are a fantastic gardener and you collect art as well, which is a bit gardeny. But I've said this a million times in these podcasts now, but we went from having our home, which we moved into over 2 years ago, and we annihilated the garden because we literally knocked out every wall and shoved it out the window and dropped it onto the garden, and it was like we were in a maisonette and you can see a mound of house outside and he used to get taken away and stuff. And for 2 years, every day I'd walk past this garden, which is just emaciated. It was rubble. I had no time to do it. I had no imagination as to how I could make it look good. And then the pandemic happened, and all of a sudden, ping, I had time. I had time to think. I had resources. You know, everything was in my favor. The weather was fantastic. Within 4 weeks, we'd done the garden. You know, people are walking by. Oh, your garden's gorgeous. Best garden on the street. Oh, it makes me feel so happy when I come by. Oh, what's that flower? I'm like, I don't know. You know, I'd just been given all these seeds, and literally, I was like Jack. I was like casting my casting these seeds, and then they come up, and I had to get my gardener friend round, Pauline, and say, Pauline, what is this? Oh yeah, that's a whatever, whatever. But you're a good gardener. You know what you're doing, don't you?
I'm not. I wouldn't say I know what I'm doing. I've definitely learned by evolution. So my mum was a big gardener, and I watched her, but I didn't learn. I didn't sort of sit there and go, "This is how you do it." And when she used to come and stay, she'd show me how to plant pots and not to put too much soil in and too much water and stuff like that. But it has literally been, let the garden be, let it do its thing, and then look at it after a while and go, don't like that, take that out, that's a weed, this, that, and the other. And it's an evolution. I love the metaphor with the garden and us, because if you over pick at it, if you over pull it, you over prod and poke and feed, nothing's going to happen. It's not going to grow. It's going to get a bit suppressed. You know, all at the same time, if you keep digging things up, nothing settles. So I've definitely learned to let things settle a bit, not be so anally retentive about everything looking pristine. And it's just a tiny London garden, like most London gardens are, but it is a little sanctuary of heaven, and I absolutely love it. I'm looking at it now. I'm in my shed. I had a shed put in the bottom of my garden 2 years ago, and it's the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Are you going to whip me around? You said you're going to give me a tour. It's a public tour.
Quick look. Here we go. Here we go. How do I do this? Hang on.
I love the walls. The colour of the wall is gorgeous.
There's my sofa, which when I was allowed to have people round to do interviews, that's what we'd sit on.
Yeah.
And then this is where I do my art.
Oh.
So I'm not an artist, but I do like to muck about, and I've mucked about for about 15 years with art. So hang on, that's the front door. Hang on, which way around? And then out here, that's my garden. Obviously very wintry at the minute, but little. I do, honestly, you don't need much more. Everybody should be given a caravan in life and a little bit of space, and that's all we need.
And do you have a front garden as well, or just a back one?
It's a drive, but I've made it into, I've put sleepers down, and there's two massive sleeper beds. One's full of lavender and one's full of all sorts of other stuff. And then my carpet in the middle. But no, it's basically, I pretend I live in the country.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because I didn't plan on living in London forever, and I've been here 33 years. I was coming for a year, but I do miss the countryside. You know, I was born and raised in a small place up north, and it pulls you. You've got to, that nature, and I'm obsessed with moss. Moss. I love it. Have you ever? If you ever go walk in the Lake District and it's raining, which obviously it is always. You walk along and the walls are heaving with moss, heaving. And then when it's been pouring down, you put your hand in and it's like a sponge. It just soaks, and the sensation is gorgeous.
Wow. You see, I have no appreciation of moss. The only, I remember when I was working for a shopping channel, and the gardening guy, a household guy came on. He's like, oh, the big sell was how moss gets into your walls and in your drainage and, ruins everything. And it was like this thing of how to get rid of moss. And he brought moss along, but we had to be like, it's horrible, it's horrible. But the way you've described it is exactly right. And
I tell you there's something, and I've written this in my book actually, because I do remember actually in Clapham walking along, seeing this wall with this layer of moss, and it's microscopic, so when you really head in there, look what I'm doing. But yeah, there's a little tiny droplet of water, right, and it balanced on the moss.
Wow.
Like we were the giants going in and just observing this tiny, tiny little raindrop, which was perfectly formed, balancing on this little tiny bit of moss. I mean, mesmerising.
I hear you.
What can I say?
I'm just looking out into my garden now, and it just keeps giving. Stuff's still growing. And I put down a lot of stuff late as well. And I mean, I put some new bulbs in just recently, which will pop up next year. But the plants, the vibrancy and the color, and I watch people walking by, and people look in, and some people step in and have a look, and I like that because we don't have a gate or anything. But I feel my garden's for the community to share. I mean, okay, I don't want everybody in there.
Well, speaking of which, outside what I've put, because when we were in America a couple of years ago, I'm walking down the street and there was this little tiny library. I don't know if you've ever seen them. They're about this big. They're not very big at all. And they have about 30 books in. I
We've
thought,
got one next door.
I've got one in my front drive.
Yeah.
I put one there, and now people just walk past all the time,
Yeah.
books in and out.
Yeah.
And that, again, part of the community.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have one next door, and the people that own the property next door now bought it with the book thing in there from, the previous people had it.
Yeah.
And, kids come, cars just draw up random, go in, people on cars, on bikes, scooters, whatever. And it was great for us as well, because when we moved in, we put all our books in there, and we took a few on, I take some to other people, but it's a really beautiful community resource. I'm watching the time, Sam Bunch.
Yeah.
And before we get onto your show and tell, the other connection that we have, because it didn't come that naturally to you, and I remember us talking about it, but now you're doing it all the time, and it is yoga, isn't it? You've really got into the yoga.
I'm really into yoga, but I have done yoga most of my adult life, but on and off.
I didn't realize.
I came from being a gymnast, so of course, showy off.
Wee, that's our connection. I was a gymnast as well. From 4 till about 13, they used to call me the elastic band.
Yeah, well, exactly. And I did 9 to 15. And because you're bendy, the immediate thing, obviously, to go into is yoga because you can show off. Right. So in my 20s, I just went to yoga to show off.
Right.
Because I could do everything without any effort. It wasn't an effort at all. So I've always kept it in my life. But actually, since the menopause, my body has become, thank God, much, much stiffer. Because when you're elasticy and bendy, it really, people think it's great, but actually it's not. It's really not good for you. It's that hypermobility, and you're in pain a lot. So the menopause, for me, that one good thing is made me much stiffer. So now when I do yoga, I'm actually really benefiting from it.
Yes.
Because it's actually making me do everything I should have been doing in the first place.
And you think about it more, and you use your breath to help you get into the position. Because I know what you'd be like me. Oh, standing bow. Leg up here, and you're in, and that's no good because you're not aligned properly. And I was told in my late mid-20s, because of the arch that I had in my back, that if I didn't sort that out, I'd really suffer with it as an adult, sort of older. And I listened to that immediately, and I started doing Alexander technique. I started really watching my posture and sorted myself right out. But I didn't get into yoga until my 30s, actually. And with the Bikram yoga, the hot stuff, and then Ashtanga, and now we do it at home. Taught Lawrence how to do it, and he does it every day without fail. It doesn't matter.
So does my husband. He's got into it. So we do Iyengar yoga. So the word hot and dynamic does not come into our yoga lives at all. It's all very, very sort of alignment. And he's been doing it for about a year and a half now, and practice headstand every single day.
I've seen your headstands. They're awesome. Well done. Really good. I love a headstand. I love a handstand. Even now with the handstands, and I was like, careful.
But Fayon, we're cheating with the headstands because we could always do them. Come on.
I
can't take gratitude for that, love.
Not really, but I miss doing like arrow, like the forward springs and I miss doing backward walkovers. I used to just do them 1, 2, 3, 4. Never used to run out of energy, Next life now.
Do a cartwheel, can you?
I can still do a cartwheel. I can do a cartwheel in here.
When we're out of this COVID, we should go on the common and do some cartwheels.
I still do cartwheels in my house because it's open plan. I've got the room. But now it's time, Sam Bunch, for your show and tell. What have you brought to show me?
Well, I'm obsessed with little things, right? Little, it doesn't matter what it is. If it's cute and miniature, I'm sold. And it could be an acorn,
Oh.
shell, right? That's just found on the common that I collect and I put in my bedroom. I've got like one of these shells that I put little things on, right? How cute is that?
Ah, did?
It's the tiniest little succulent cactus you've ever seen in your entire life. I mean, it is literally, it's not much bigger than my
No,
thumb.
it's tiny.
It's
What's
a
that?
tiny little terracotta bowl.
Oh, it's like
But hold on.
Cindy. This is like a house for Cindy.
I know it is jam, but it's not the jam, it's the pot. The pot is one of those miniatures. You know, when you go to breakfast in a hotel and then they've got the
Yes.
miniature bon maman sort of
Yeah.
things. Oh,
Yeah.
I steal them. I steal them.
We all
Look at them.
do. We all do.
I know. Mortar and pestle, or pestle and mortar. It's
Yeah.
tiny. I don't know if you can see the size on it, but
What
it's
do you put in there?
literally
Like thyme or something?
nothing.
Basil.
I'm just obsessed. And then the tiniest little pack of cards. So these, I've just brought a few, but I've literally got hundreds of these things in my house. There's hundreds. It doesn't matter if it's little and cute. I'll buy
You know
it. I'll
what?
pick it up, I'll ask if I can have it, and I'll just store it. And in fact, just at the moment I'm doing this little project for it's nothing major at all, in fact, but I'll just show you. I've just been doing these little drawings, but look how cute that little flower is.
I have seen them. I have seen
So
them.
so it's about cute. It's
Yeah.
about squidgy cute. So that's what makes
Where
me
does this
very good.
come from, do you think? This love of tiny things.
I've no idea, but my sister told me, because I didn't realize I was obsessed with tiny things, but she said you've been obsessed with tiny things your entire life, and I didn't know. It's part of me, like we were talking about before. So it's only because she's brought it to light that I now realize that I am. Whereas before I was just doing it, going,
No, you're
oh my,
doing it. You're
yeah.
embracing
But like we went on holiday a couple of years back, and we went to the shop, and they did teeny weeny Nutella jars. Have you seen them?
it.
And I'm like, they're adorable. So yeah,
Right.
that's what makes me very,
Now I
very
know. Now I know. If I ever want to get you a little gift, it would be
little is good. Little
tiny.
work. And also it doesn't take so much space, and
Yeah,
generally they don't cost too much because they're tiny.
I love that. I love the detail though of some of the tiny things that you can get. I just think of teeny tiny things that I don't think I'm like that. I don't think I'm a teeny tiny person. You can tell by my earrings, because the size of them. No, I'm not a teeny tiny person.
Can
I
I tell you
think
about have we got time to tell you this little story about a bee?
I'd love you to tell me a story about a bee, because bees are one of my most favorite things in the world.
I was in my garden this a couple of years back, and I was a bit overzealous, and got a big
No.
was a big clod of soil, and I chucked it, and as I chucked it over my shoulder, I thought it sort of landed in a plant rather than on the grass, and the plant bowed down. So I got down, and I realised what I'd done is I'd squashed a bee on the plant with the sod of grass, or the clump of grass. I thought, oh my God, I've killed a bee. So I laid on the floor and I got some of it off as much as I could. And I saw this little bee, and I thought he was dead. I thought he was absolutely dead. But I watched him. I just laid on the grass, and I watched him and I watched him and I watched him. And as the sun got hotter on this clod, it dried and the clod fell off a bit. And then I just saw this tiny wing just move like that. And I thought, oh, he's not dead.
Wow.
And then just very, very gently opened his wing like that. And I thought, oh my God, this is amazing. And then he stopped. I thought he's
Oh,
dead. But again, this process went on for about 20 minutes.
okay.
It was drying out, opening up, drying out,
Mm.
opening up. And each time it took so much energy from this bee to get really
Mm.
exhilarated. But eventually he managed to open both wings and move up to the next branch. But couldn't fly off yet, because this was a
Right.
whole process. But it was fascinating
Wow.
how that in a state of quite doom and gloom, really, the
Yeah.
resilience of that bee was quite phenomenal. So that I take as my little I don't know I'm telling you that, but I've told
No,
you
no, no.
anyway.
It's very interesting that you tell me that, because, I'd have been wanting to help the bee along, maybe dust stuff off him, or, do something to help, like the bee that I found outside on my pathway. I was walking, and I don't know, a jogger went before me, and then I just saw this massive bumblebee who'd been a bit squidged. He hadn't been squashed, but one of his wings looked a bit weird. And I thought, oh no. And he wasn't, he was just limping along. And I thought, if anybody else comes apart, comes across, you're gone. So I got a leaf, lifted him up, and brought him into the garden and popped him on a flower. And he literally just dropped straight off. I thought, oh God, he's knackered. So here's where this is the difference between you and I. Rather than leaving him in the garden and just seeing what happens, no, I go and get a jar. I go and put some soil in there, and I put what's I put in there? A bit of sugar, yeah, and a little environment for him and a leaf and everything. And I put him in this jar and put holes in it, in the lid, and brought him inside. And he was not a happy bee. He looked absolutely finished. And I went out, came back, and he looked a bit better. He perked up a bit, but he'd rolled in all the sugar. So all the sugar was all over this bee. And I'm like, oh my God. So like trying to get a little tiny makeup brush, like a new one, and just trying to dust it off the bee. Anyway, so the bee's probably thinking, just leave me alone. Left him overnight, and he was on his way out. He didn't look well at all. But in the morning he picked up a bit. So I thought, right, Fayon, take him outside. So I put him outside in another flower, and he brightened up for only 5 minutes or so, and then he just sort of went. He was always going to go, but I just thought if I could just give him a little extra life, if I could.
Oh.
And then he went peacefully, and then I saw a spider coming. I'm like, no, you're not having him. So I moved him, this corpse of a bee. Lawrence is like, what are you doing with the bee? Will you just leave it? I don't want the spider to eat it. But that's life.
I was going to say we were a pair of bee whisperers, but clearly not.
No, there's no whispering going on by me, just annihilation. And on that happy note, Sam Bunch, it's been great to have you on Happy Talk.
Thanks for having me, Fayon.
It's been brilliant. So I will see you one day in that shed, I hope.
Come round for a cup of tea, love, anytime you like, when we're out of this nonsense.
In the teeny tiniest little cup. A thimbleful of tea.
I will give you a good cup.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sam. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you so much to Sam Bunch. It was really brilliant to have you here on Happy Talk. It really was. So I started off today's Happy Talk talking about live performances and music. And today's Happy Happenings features one of my husband's customers, who is Brooke Simpson, who is a 14-year-old bass player, a double bass player. And she recently was featured on BBC Radio 3 in an interview about the music that she has been involved with across the water. So it's such a great interview. I just wanted to play it for you. So here it is. It's George Tarleton. Here we go. So here's the interview. Now, because it's position it up for you.
And really meaningful of your all your parts. Well, Brooks in.
So this week's Happy Happenings is from a proud father and mother talking about one of my husband. So on this week's Happy Happenings is from one of Lawrence's customers. Lawrence runs a double bass business, and Brooke Simpsons is 14 years of age and plays the double bass. And her mum and dad got in touch with Lawrence to just share their joy in the wonderful part that Brooke got to play in an orchestral movement across the pond with people that she never thought she'd get the opportunity to work with. So I thought it'd be nice if I actually played the interview that appeared on BBC Radio 3. And if you're lucky, you can still go and listen to the link. But she's 14, and here we go.
The opening of Mighty River by Errol and Walden with members of the National Youth Orchestra of Great Britain. That's conducted by Lee Reynolds, but the NYO says he created the click track, so I think that's as close to a conductor as we can get. Well, Brooke Simpson is playing now. She's a double bass with the National Youth Orchestra, aged 14. She's on the line now. Brooke, lovely to have you with us.
Hi.
How
Nice
did you?
to be here.
Yeah, lovely. Well, listen, you're used to technology now. I suspect your entire generation. It's part of your DNA. How did you manage that? Did you have to record all your parts separately?
Yes, so we had a click track and we had to record our parts separately, and then MYO put it together into a multi-track.
Yeah. Gosh, it's very different than being in a huge orchestra with, I mean, in your case, with your double basses, with a lot of your colleagues around you.
Yes, it's brilliant.
So, what have you been doing then? When you're during lockdown, I know you've all been you've been asked to have different responses to diversity and things. What did you do? What did you decide to do?
So MYO asked us what we wanted to do and what's on our mind, and we all came back and said we wanted to be active. We'd heard a lot on George Floyd's death and about the protests, so we decided we wanted to shine light on new music by Black composers. So I set out to find a female, young, contemporary Black composer who'd written for double bass. I started my search in Trinidad, and my great-granddad was raised there. I soon widened my search across the globe, and that's how I found Mason Bynes. I looked at her website, listened to some of her music, and it was exactly what I was looking for. So I emailed her, and she could have just said that, like, she could have just given me the music and be done with it, but instead she was so supportive. She was so funny and generous and kind, and we've had workshops and stuff where I got to hear what's in her heart and head as she was writing the piece, which was really interesting.
Wonderful, gosh.
Wow, I just thank you for letting me indulge you in that, because Brooke is from just a normal everyday family. You know, she's not overprivileged in any way. She goes to a normal comprehensive school and just has had a love of the double bass for several years. And you know, she could have picked up any other instrument, but it's the double bass. And her school in London have just been so wonderful of making sure that she has, you know, the double bass to play and giving her loads and loads of support. And I know my husband Lawrence has a great relationship with her and her family, because it's just incredible that this young girl has such feeling for this enormous instrument, but how it's been able to take her across the pond and back again. So, if you have a happy happening that is happening to you, a member of your family, a neighbour, I'd love to hear about it. You can send me an email to happytalkwithfayondixon@gmail.com. Good news, good guests, no grief. So send them along. I'd love to hear from you. And until then, take care.